I'm just trying to understand if you were really my father. In 8 years, she's never showed me a picture. She's never spoke of you. No one has ever spoke of you.
Named Mr. Saunders. Basically, I ended up having sex with him that day and Mr. Johnson at the same time.
I raised my daughter since she was little, but I'm getting slack from other family members and friends that say that she's not my daughter.
The court session begins as Judge Lawrence speaks about Mr. Jenkins, who reached out to the court. He believes he has a long-lost daughter and wants to find her. The court assists in searching for her. Ms. Bond, however, doesn't think he is her father, as she has never heard of him.
You believe that you have a long-lost daughter and hoped to one day find her to prove you are her father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
She does not believe you are her father. So, Ron, can you please escort Ms. Bond into the courtroom? Had you ever heard of Mr. Jenkins?
No, I've never heard of Mr. Jenkins. None of my family members have spoken on him.
Ms. Bond submits her birth certificate as evidence, and the certificate reveals something that is contrary to what Ms. Bond has known all her life. The judge asks Mr. Jenkins when he finds out about Ms. Bond. He replies and talks about Ms. Bond's mother.
So this is your birth certificate?
Yes, Your Honor.
And under father's legal name, nothing is recorded?
Yes, Your Honor.
You come to court today completely in the dark?
Yes, Your Honor.
You don't have any information?
No information.
No one's ever told you anything?
No one's ever told me anything.
Me and her mother was in college together. And I'm telling you, she was banging. I mean, she was bad.
Mr. Jenkins then submits evidence he has had for over 24 years, but the evidence raises further doubts in Ms. Bond's mind. Ms. Bond asks Mr. Jenkins more questions to help her understand the situation better.
I'd like to submit this here to the court, Your Honor.
Yes. Ron, can you hand me that evidence, please?
It's an ultrasound picture that I used to go to the hospital with her. I was excited. I said, I got my first child, I got a girl. You know, I was just blown away. I was on top of the world. Over 24 years, I've been saving that picture right there.
Why did it take you so long to find me?
I've been doing everything I can do.
Judge Lauren then asks Ms. Bond about her childhood and upbringing after her parents passed. Ms. Bond replies while full of emotion. She also talks about her current situation.
After your mom passed and your dad, who took care of you?
A relative on my mother's side. You know, I didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't have anyone. I lost my mother.
Take your time.
And my father. And I have no one on my side. And I just feel so alone. I feel like a part of me is really missing.
Mr. Jenkins reveals all he has done to find Ms. Bond. But Ms. Bond thinks it's impossible to do all that and not find her after all these years. Mr. Jenkins provides more evidence. Ms. Bond claims to know nothing about the evidence. Out of curiosity, the judge asks how the relationship between Mr. Jenkins and Ms. Bond's mother ended.
I used to come over there every Christmas. I used to go there, kept me out on the porch, played crazy on me, played like she didn't know who I was. I'd like to submit one more thing to the court, Your
I have
Honor.
a Facebook page. If you went for social media, you could have found me.
I had contacted Miss Bond before.
I've never received a call.
Was that your phone number?
It might have been. I have so many numbers. I really don't remember.
I've been Googling her. All these different sites, I've been doing all of this.
I don't understand. You've done all this and you still couldn't find me. I don't understand.
You all were in love and you were having a baby and you've got ultrasound pictures. What happened?
Mr. Jenkins shows one more piece of evidence he has of Ms. Bond. The judge asks Ms. Bond about it, claiming she has never seen the evidence before. The judge then asks Mr. Jenkins how he lost contact with Ms. Bond's mom. He replies and talks about how they almost met shortly before Ms. Bond's mom died.
And I've been having that picture over 24 years. I look at that picture all the time.
You believe that's Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Bond, have you ever seen that baby picture of yourself?
Seen the baby picture of myself.
Did you ever come close to meeting Ms. Bond? How did you lose contact?
People got in her head, took her away from me. I went by there and left my phone number. And when she called me, I was excited. I was like, wow. Here I can get my girl. I can see my baby now.
Ms. Bond dismisses what Mr. Jenkins said. She doesn't believe him. Judge Lauren then asks Mr. Jenkins an important question. She also gives an example to show why her question is valid. Ms. Bond replies to the judge and agrees with her line of thought.
Do you think there was a possibility that Ms. Bond's mother didn't think you were the biological father?
She knew that I was the father.
Could it be possible that maybe there was something that you just missed?
No, Your Honor.
She never spoke of you, and I'm just trying to understand if you were really my father. In 8 years, she's never showed me a picture. She's never spoke of you. No one has ever spoke of you.
The judge asks what made Mr. Jenkins trigger his search for his daughter again. She speaks of Mr. Jenkins' daily effort to search for his daughter. Mr. Jenkins replies using a common example. Judge Lauren then asks Ms. Bond who she thinks she looks like.
Let me ask you this. What jump-started, accelerated this new search? You call this court every single day.
The things that I have or the things that I accomplish in life, I would like to leave them to my daughter.
So when you look at Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Bond, do you see yourself at all?
I look more like him to me, in my opinion.
You feel like you look more like the man you believe to be your father?
Yes.
The results are in. Judge Lauren reads it, and everyone cheers excitedly. Mr. Jenkins moves in to hug Ms. Bond while she cries.
Mr. Jenkins, you are her father.
Judge Lauren reads the case starting with the claim of Miss Moffett. She believes she has always known her biological father, but got a message 2 years ago from another man who claims to be her father. She now wants to prove that Mr. Johnson, who she has always known as her father, is in fact her birth father. Mr. Johnson doubts he is the father, and the judge states why.
Ms. Moffett, you always believed the defendant was your dad until 2 years ago. Mr. Johnson, you say the plaintiff's mother played games and unfortunately have substantial reason to doubt paternity. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The judge asks Ms. Moffett to tell her story. She responds and claims to be shocked by what the man who messaged her said. She submits evidence of the message to the court. The message surprises everyone, and the judge asks Ms. Moffett what she did next.
2 years ago, he inboxed me on Facebook, was saying that I'm his child and what I'm looking like. And he was saying that I'm his child and I have 2 other siblings.
I can see you're still shocked.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Lauren Saunders. Call me because you is my daughter and I've been looking for you. I am your dad and I can prove it. Call, please. What did he say?
He said that it hurt for you to say that come out your mouth, but I'm just like, you told me.
Judge Lauren moves to Mr. Johnson and asks about his doubts. He explains based on what happened while Ms. Moffett was very young. The judge then asks Ms. Yvonne Moffett about her relationship with Mr. Johnson. Ms. Yvonne Moffett's reply stuns the audience.
I just had doubts that I was her biological father at the time when she was little. I didn't know. I really didn't. I didn't know if I was the father or not.
Well, Mr. Johnson and I met when I was young. We fell in love, and we just was seeing each other, going places. That made me fall for him, even though I knew he was married at the time.
Oh.
Yeah, he was married.
Ms. Yvonne Moffett explains what happened next when she found out she was pregnant. She also talks about what happened the day Ms. Moffett was conceived. What she said surprises the audience, and the judge asks more questions to clarify.
I wasn't sure who was the father because I had went out to Maywood to see Mr. Johnson. But in the meantime, I had went to one of my friend houses named Mr. Saunders. Basically, I ended up having sex with him that day and Mr. Johnson at the same time.
Who did you tell?
Well, I told them both, exactly, because I wasn't sure who was the father.
Mr. Johnson makes a claim, and he talks about how he found out he could be Ms. Moffett's biological father. He also acknowledges that Ms. Yvonne Moffett was honest about everything back then.
She came to me with a picture and showed me the picture of Rissa, and that's how I found out I might be the biological father.
I said, here's Rissa, and here's your child, you know, that you could be a possible father. And then also I did let him know about Mr. Saunders at the same time.
Do you remember her being honest about that?
Mm-hmm.
And
she
so
was.
then did you have doubt at that point?
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Judge Lauren asks Ms. Yvonne Moffett why she was telling 2 men that they could be the biological father. Ms. Yvonne Moffett explains and mentions a reason why Mr. Russell is sure that Ms. Moffett is his daughter. The judge calls out Ms. Yvonne Moffett for not telling her daughter.
Okay.
That he kind of figured that Rissa was his, and he going by the color for her eyes because Rissa had the same eye color that his mom does.
So you knew this all this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
But you didn't tell your daughter?
No, Your Honor. I told her, that it could be a possibility, but
When did she tell you this, Miss Moffett?
2 years ago.
The judge asks Ms. Yvonne Moffett why she decided to come clean now. She explains her reasons while feeling sorry for her daughter and talks about how knowing her roots would help her bond and grow.
Because Rissa needs to know who her biological father is and need closure. She has other siblings out there that she needs to meet. And, because they never did believe that Rissa was his anyways.
I stayed out of it until Rissa got real sick. Went to the hospital and spent time with her. And she said she wanted her father there at the hospital. And I spent 3 nights there with her. I said, I'm gonna be there for her from now on out.
Ms. Moffett bursts into tears. The judge asks her why, and she explains exactly what she is feeling. The judge asks Ms. Moffett and Ms. Yvonne Moffett more questions. And Ms. Yvonne Moffett gives more details about Ms. Moffett's upbringing.
I'm just hurt.
And you feel hurt because of this
Whole
paternity
situation.
secret? What are you feeling?
Just hurt. It's stressful.
Yes, Your Honor, I know it hurts, and I didn't mean for it to hurt her. They pretty much wasn't even worth it because they never was there.
Judge Lauren then reveals the results. Ms. Moffett leans forward to hug her father tight, and all in the courtroom show their happiness, clapping for them.
Mr. Johnson, you are her father.
In this episode, Mr. Horton brings a case to court. He and Ms. Horton, who he raised as his daughter, drag her mother, Ms. Conrad, to court, claiming she was not faithful. Ms. Conrad believes that Mr. Horton is the biological father of Ms. Horton, and that she has no reason to doubt it.
Ms. Horton,
Yes.
you and the man you have always believed is your dad have dragged your mother to court because you say she was never faithful.
I think it's time to find out the reason. If she really is mine, I have no idea, I don't know. She was unfaithful all the time.
Mr. Horton claims he raised Ms. Horton since she was little, but family members and others make comments that make him doubt he is the father. Despite it all, Mr. Horton and Ms. Horton hope for the same thing.
But I raised my daughter since she was little, but I'm getting slack from other family members and friends that say that she's not my daughter.
You're both here to prove that he's not your biological father, and yet you're hoping that he is.
I'm praying, yes.
Judge Lauren asks about the history of their relationship, and they all give replies that build up the story. Ms. Horton then explains how she feels and how this issue is important.
I was 15.
You were 15 when you
Yeah.
met. So you were very young when you met.
Yes, sure.
So you all start this relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you get married?
Yes, ma'am.
You do. Eventually you get married.
And I've been trying for years, to get a DNA test, but I wasn't able to at the time and I'm not here to, make anybody upset or nothing.
The judge decides to get more information from Mr. Horton about the time Ms. Horton was conceived. Mr. Horton then speaks about another man who he believes might be the father. He gave several reasons why, and it seems convincing to everyone.
We lived in townhouse at the time, and we had a mailman that had light hair and blue eyes and had a beauty marker right here. My daughter has blonde hair, the man would have blonde hair. The man would have blue eyes, my daughter's got blue eyes. The birthmark, I call it, had the same mark, the same spot.
Ms. Conrad denies it all and defends herself with a revelation. The judge asks to see the proof of the revelation, but Ms. Conrad gives a reason why it would not be possible to do it.
My baby right here has the right to know. It's been 26 years.
Absolutely.
He can't even remember a DNA test that the
There
court
was a-
recommended
Did I
when
see
they
any
were in
papers?
foster care.
A previous paternity test was performed. What were the results?
99% his children. They gave it to my lawyer that presented it to the judge, and the judge said it in court with his lawyer being there.
The judge asks Mr. Horton when he began to question the paternity of Ms. Horton. She also asks Ms. Horton how she felt about the question. Ms. Horton replies, and Ms. Conrad reacts to the reply.
26 years ago, you've questioned whether or not she was yours?
Yes.
I kind of did have doubts, but My boyfriend said I look like him. A lot of people say I look like him.
When
a
you
little
started having doubts, why did you have doubts?
bit. Because I just look in the mirror and sometimes I don't see him. My siblings sit there and say that I'm not his because I have blue eyes. I look different than everybody else, you know, and
Judge Lauren then speaks to Ms. Horton. She helps her to appreciate herself and see that she is worth knowing who her father is. She asks Ms. Conrad's question, and her reply, as well as that of Ms. Horton, made everyone smile.
This is for you and about you.
yes.
Because you're worth it.
Yeah.
This is not because you did something wrong. You are just fine.
I
You ready
love
for
you.
the
I love you too, Mom.
And I always have, and you're still
I
my
know.
baby girl.
Yeah, she's still my favorite mom. Favorite mom.
The judge then read the result, and everyone was excited about it. Judge Lauren then appreciates the effort of Mr. Horton and Ms. Conrad. She talks about how far they are willing to go for Ms. Horton.
Mr. Horton, you are the father.
Oh my God, yes! Mommy, you were right. You were right, Mommy. You were right. I love you so much.
You supported your baby girl in her quest to know the truth, even though that truth could have led you to a different result.